Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Midweek program at the J.C. Raulston Arboretum. My name is Blake, and I'm the education assistant here at the Arboretum, and today we are in the Asian Valley because there is a beautiful clumping bamboo behind me. Can you guess what we're going to talk about today? That's right, we're going to be talking about clumping bamboos, not the running bamboos, not the bamboos that you're afraid of swallowing your whole lawn. We're going to be talking about bamboos that actually behave themselves in your landscape, which is actually fantastic. We've got a special guest on our program today. We're joined by Tony Avent, the you're not the director, you're the founder of Juniper Level Botanic. He's the whatever of Juniper Level Botanical Garden in the flesh with us on the Midweek program today. And we are indeed joined by our research technician, Evan Villani. They've brought a list of bamboos that they'd love to tell you more about today, and we are excited to hear what they have to share with us. So it should be a beautiful program. Those of you watching this on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to our channel, and feel free to leave a comment down below. And with the announcements out of the way, I will pass things over to Tony and Evan to teach us a little something about clumping bamboos.
So, Tony, I am largely ignorant in the way of bamboos. And when I hear bamboo in North Carolina, I either think I'm scared or I think, no way that's going to work. So I'm going to lean on you today to educate us on what sort of clumping bamboos work here and why.
Okay, well, there's plenty of reasons to be scared. Certainly growing up, I had many experiences with bamboos. At the time, most of those were the running variety, and I learned a great, I'm not going to say fear, but respect.
Sure.
Because there were some older gardens in Raleigh that had been pretty much taken over by bamboos, and those people were not even able to garden anymore in big sections of their gardens. And then when I started traveling out of state, I remember one garden up in Maryland, they had lost their swimming pool to a bamboo.
Oh my gosh.
Another one had cracked the house foundation and moved in. So bamboos are not something to be taken lightly. It's not to say that running bamboos don't have a place. If you've got 100 acres, running bamboos are great if you're not planning on doing anything there. There's nothing like walking through a grove of large bamboos is really quite magical.
Yeah.
Then as I got older, I realized that there were clumping bamboos. The first ones I encountered were on vacations down to southern areas like Florida, where you have a tremendous number of clumping bamboos. Most of those are of the genus Bambusa, and these will go all the way down to Miami. Coming north, they're not as thrilled with our winters. So let me sort of begin by saying, when we talk about clumping bamboos and running bamboos, there's not really, it's not quite that clear. Clumping bamboos spread, they just spread very slowly. So clumping bamboos are what we know as pachymophs, whereas running bamboos are leptomorphs or leaping rhizomes. Pachymophs are packed rhizomes. So they might grow, spread an inch a year, as opposed to 3 to 4 feet a year. So that's really the difference. There's actually mesomorphs, which do a little of both, but we're not going to talk about those today because there's not many of those out there. So pachymophs literally cannot run. A pack of hungry pandas could be chasing it. It still can't run. It's going to be stuck right there for them to eat. So these are not ever going to be a problem in the garden. We've got 30-year-old clumps. They're sitting in the exact same place. Now, some do get bigger than others. Some may, in 30 years, may spread to 3 feet. Some may spread to 6 feet. Some may spread to 8 feet. But that's it. They're spreading inches a year, not feet a year. So that's really the key of understanding. Then you look at, do they like cold or heat? And there's two divisions. The bambusas I mentioned, they love heat. They don't really love our cold. Anything north of zone 8, so anything below 10 to 12 degrees, they're going to get burned. So the one behind us, the fern leaf, that's a Bambusa multiplex. So that's one of the shorter of the heat-tolerant bamboos. Typically 10 to 12. Like I say, you're going to get some foliage burn around 12. Anything much below 10 is going to the ground. So you go back out in spring, cut that one to the ground, it comes back. Now, what you hope is you don't have 2 really cold winters in a row, because then it just gets smaller each year, and each year until you get a mild winter, then it starts to regrow. So if you have 3 mild winters in a row, it might get to 10 feet tall. If you have a cold winter every year down below 10, it's going to stay in the 3 to 4 feet range. So there's many different forms of multiplex. The largest one's one we call green giant, and that for us will do 30 feet in our climate. Now, you get that in Florida, it's probably going to do 60 feet. It can be a huge thing down there. I mean, we're talking, you can make good fishing poles out of ours. You can make, they make scaffolding out of bamboos. You can almost get scaffolding size if you have 2 or 3 mild winters. Riviorum is another one, sort of halfway in between the fern leaf and the green giant. So all 3 of those are great. And again, pretty much the same hardiness. Outside of and then there are other species. Probably the next most common, if you went south, would be Bambusa textilis, one of the timber bamboos, and we've tried that. That's actually been fine, same as multiplex. Then you move into a group called Berindas. Berindas are still pachymorphs, but they run a little faster than the Bambusas. We've got probably now a 25-year-old Berinda bulliana, which is just a gorgeous, gorgeous plant. Now, we were told by the folks on the West Coast that will not take any heat, will not take any sun. Well, ours is planted out, as you can see here, in full sun, and it's absolutely one of the most magnificent bamboos I've ever planted. And after, again, 20, 25 years, it's probably going to be 10 foot across at the base. So, yeah, they still need a little room, but they're absolutely not going to run. Bambusa fungosa is a much slower one with much larger leaves. It's a very different texture. We grew a bunch of seedlings, and a lot of them couldn't take our heat. We found one that was really good that we named Screen Queen. Makes a nice screen, and that's been great. Down to, again, 10 degrees, you're going to start losing some foliage, and you're going to lose it to the ground below 10. But it does seem to pop back very fast. Berinda McCluriana is probably the shortest of the Berindas we grow, and that is a tight clump. That one for us never topped really 6 feet, 5 to 6 feet. So a much smaller plant. We've given that up to 2 or 3 hours of sun. That one's been absolutely great in the garden. Then we move into the Fargesias. That's probably the most common of all the bamboo groups, especially as you go from Raleigh north into zone colder parts of 7 into 6. I've seen people grow it in 5, but it gets killed to the ground a lot. The Fargesias really, as a rule, don't like our summers. We've had success with really, Robusta has done well, and there are a couple of cultivars of that. Ping Wu, we've got some almost 30-year-old clumps that are looking fabulous. Again, no sign of running after 30 years, and we do soil really well. So if it's going to run, it's going to run for us. And Fargesia robusta Wulong, which has much wider leaves. Again, a very different texture. That one has really thrived for us. With all the bamboos, one of the things that people don't understand is how bamboos eliminate competition, and that is through allelopathy, which means, and you see that in a lot of the grasses, they actually secrete chemicals that keep other plants from growing nearby. So it's like a competition reducer. And that's why in big masses of running bamboos, you see nothing else growing there. And in the clumping bamboos, you're going to watch what you plant around them. We haven't seen much issues, but it is there. So just be aware of that possibility. As a typical rule, most of the clumping bamboos of the genus Fargesia prefer light shade. We've grown them in a couple hours of sun. That's fine as long as the moisture's there. We haven't seen any issues, but if you're looking for something for light shade, not deep shade. Deep shade, they'll grow, but they look like crap. So
too skinny.
Yeah, they're sparse. They just don't, It looks like death would help them. The other genus, which you don't see used a lot, is Eushania confusa. And this is one we got from the late, very famous landscape architect Wolfgang of and von Sweden. He loved bamboos, and he was always looking for new bamboos to use in his landscape. He would sneak them in to landscapes on clients that didn't want bamboos. And he would just not tell them, and he would plant a bamboo at every landscape. And this is one we got from him, and it's been great for us. Now, ours is probably close to 20 years old. 8 to 10 feet tall, beautiful arching shape. It's really been great. And again, has not run at all. So we do have a lot of options. I know it's hard for some people that have
grown up with bamboo, the running kind.
Yes, to understand there actually are some that do not run, but that's why we love when people come out to the garden, we show them, look, here it is. It's not caged in. It doesn't have the barriers that you have, and if you've got a runner and you don't want it to run, you better put a barrier in. And we're talking 2+ feet deep, 6 inches of concrete reinforced with steel.
Yeah, basically, I mean, he's saying that, but we talked earlier. We said it's not even worth it because we had a barricade around our Phylostachys nigra, and it has and is still again breaking out. And one thing that happened to the Phylostachys nigra, which is an interesting thing to talk about with bamboos, is it flowered, and it flowered all at once. And this is just, we're going to get into a little bit of fun facts here. But so why do they flower all at once? The whole clump goes.
Well, it's generally a clonal thing. So every division off that clump, when it comes time to flower, and it's generally every 100 years. So it's sort of like a century plant agave. It flowers, and when it flowers, it dies. So that's why this was so unusual. The one that you were telling me about, your black bamboo, that flowered, and it's actually
resprouting.
Yes, like one of those bad horror movies. The Jason can come back to life.
Yeah, it's a sequel.
Yes, that's scary. But the clumpers, I promise you, you're not going to see those coming back. They will absolutely die. We've had a number of clumpers. We used to have a Fargesia that was the most common one was Fargesia nitida. Then all of a sudden, all the old clones that have been around for 100 years all died.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything now is one of what we call the next generation, the new gen of those. And that's why bamboo taxonomy is really difficult. You go through 4 generations of taxonomists before the thing flowers, and you have to see flowers to identify it. So in the last 10 years, all these bamboos have changed genus because they finally flowered. And so the 3 generations of taxonomists before them are all dead now. And the next guy's like, oh, damn, look, that's flowered. That's not what I thought that was. And so they've changed genus. So for people that think taxonomy on normal plants is bad, try doing one that only flowers every 100 years.
Sure. Wow. And we had, what we were looking at earlier, this shot is Bambusa multiplex fernleaf. We had one flower and die behind us a little ways. That was a little tricky to get out. It was like mountain mint pycnanthemum has like, you're familiar with that kind of root mass? On these bamboos, it's like 3 times as thick and deep. And that was a bit of a struggle to get out, and we brought some new soil back in, but doesn't look like the allelopathy has had much of an effect on the soil back there, so I think we're all right.
That's great. Yeah, bamboos, if you're going to work with them, if you're going to divide them or anything, you need bamboo equipment. It's specialized equipment, specialized shovels. If you take a shovel you buy at the box stores and try to attack a bamboo, you might as well throw your shovel and axe away. It will just eat those. So it really does require special equipment. Now, we talked a little about, I just mentioned dividing. You can divide clumping bamboo. You must do it in the wintertime. If you do it any other season, they're dead.
No kidding.
The whole thing.
You will kill it. You do not want to divide bamboos except the dormant. So for us, that's going to be October, November, all the way up through March. You've got that window. But do not try dividing them anything after that. April, May, the rest of the summer, they're dead.
Are you able to elaborate on why that is?
Well, I haven't asked one. They just don't like it. They just absolutely will die. It's you want to divide it right before it starts into growth.
Yeah.
So since those bamboos are cool season growers, that's when they're
for sure. The little research that I did, it looks like bamboo only flush growth for about 2 weeks in the spring. And then the rest of the year, they don't really do much of anything. So from what I read, it seems like bamboo may be simpler to get rid of than people realize if you understand that it's going to be a multi-year process, that if you just curb it, stop it from growing every year just during those 2 weeks, then eventually it'll eat through its assuming you chopped it down first, it'll eat through its stored carbs. But I imagine that since they only flush in the spring, that would be why you'd try any other year. They just sit there and slowly die.
Yeah, bamboos, if you get one that's out of control, you can control it with Roundup. I mean, I've seen people eliminate large patches. It will take you a couple of years to catch anything that comes back up, but they're not impossible, the runners, to get rid of. The clumpers you don't want to get rid of. Used to be a lot of the clumpers, because they're difficult to propagate for nurseries. So for several years, there was 2 or 3 tissue culture labs doing bamboos. Well, they pretty much have all gone out of business now. So bamboos are less available and the prices have shot up. So we have put in the last couple of years a field growing operation for our bamboos, where we stub them back through the growing season. Every time a cone gets up, we cut it back. And that way we maintain something that's small enough to divide, and then we go in every winter and do our divisions. But you only got one chance a year to go in and do those. And that has worked out very well to allow us to continue to offer bamboos. But the clumpers, the prices will never come down. It's just not gonna happen. They're just, the demand is not there and the propagation is too costly.
You mentioned managing runners with Roundup, and you did mention something earlier that I thought was worth sharing, which is you spray at 1/3 of the rate, which for us is about an ounce a gallon, each week for 3 weeks. So you do 3 sprays at a 1/3 rate. And can you explain why that might work better?
Well, yeah, materials like Roundup are actually growth regulators. They cause the roots to multiply, the cells to multiply faster than the plant can uptake nutrients. So if you spray the full strength on the Roundup, before it has a chance to get down there and actually go all through the roots, it pisses the plant off. And the plant's like, all right, I'm gonna look ugly for a while, and then I'm gonna send growth out underneath the ground, and then all of a sudden, 4 years later, I'm gonna be all over your garden. So by putting it on at 1/3 the rate, this is something that one of our local weed guys, the late Noel Weston of the City of Raleigh Parks, came up with. He said, if you put 1/3 the rate on every single week, consistently for 3 weeks, you'll have a much better chance of taking out difficult grasses like bamboos.
And you've also mentioned several things that I didn't think would work. Berinda, Eushania. Have you heard, I don't know, but I heard Chuskia, C-H-U-S.
No, Chusquias won't work.
Won't work.
We actually saw those in the wild. We studied them down in Argentina, the northern areas. And we can grow a lot of plants from around there, but they have no tolerance for heat.
No tolerance for heat.
So we've tried Chusquias and just absolutely no luck. They're fine and cold, but we lose them in the summer. So anytime you get a plant from a cold region and then you move it into an area with a hot summer, it actually loses winter hardiness because of the heat. Whereas plants from warm areas actually pick up winter hardiness in hot summers.
I heard that about like our windmill palms. If it's too mild the summer, they might go in a harsh winter. Yeah,
windmill palms are much hardier in England than they are here.
No kidding.
Because they have cooler summers.
Sure.
Whereas our sable palms are hardier for us because they need the heat of the summer.
No kidding.
And so a lot of the bamboos, like the Chusquias, they're great on the West Coast. They're fine. There's certainly no problem down to the temperatures we have, but our summers just absolutely deplete their reserves.
Sure.
Gotcha. Okay, so I said it backwards. Trachycarpus like a mild summer. They prefer cool temperatures.
They prefer cool summers.
I see. Thank you.
Yep.
You also mentioned one of your cultivars was called Screen Queen.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a good kind of intro into where should I plant the bamboo and why should I plant the bamboo? And I think, well, texture and screening and anything else.
Yeah, they're fabulous textural plants.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why. They're nothing but ornamental grasses. That's what they are. They're grass members. All grasses provide a wonderful texture in the garden, and especially in the shade, because majority of ornamental grasses that we know are more sun plants. There's certainly a few exceptions, but the bamboos are the opposite. They're really better in the light open shade, not deep shade,
Gotcha.
but light open. So you can, if you've got a pathway, you can use it to divide the path so that you can go down one side and then you have to go around to see the other side. So really as a screen, if you've got neighbors that you don't particularly care for, bamboos can be great. They cover those. You want to be sure, again, you're not going to get one that's going to go to the ground at 10 degrees, and then all of a sudden there's your neighbor again for a couple of years.
Whatever you didn't want to see.
Yeah, you have to be sure to locate them in the right place and understand. So the Fargesias typically, for this particular region, are going to be a better choice.
Because they're so cold hardy.
Yeah. They're not going to get as big. The bambusas are much, much bigger.
Right.
And one of the interesting things about bambusas, a couple of years ago, there was a big movement to ban the genus Bambusa in North Carolina. The people who don't know anything about plants in the wildflower group put Bambusa on the genus to be banned.
Because they thought it was a runner.
Well,
or because they thought it was the bamboo.
They hear the word bamboo. Science doesn't matter to fundamentalists. So they put this thing on there, and we started getting calls. They're getting ready to ban the genus Bambusa. So I had to write letters. I was like, wait a minute. Okay, this is a clumping plant. It does not run. It flowers every 100 years, and then it dies. Now, what about that is invasive? And technically, running bamboos don't fit any meaningful definition of invasive. They're garden thugs.
Yeah.
But they do not invade a functioning natural ecosystem, displacing natives once equilibrium has been reached, causing economic harm. Because they can't reseed.
That was one thing I noticed when I was over in Japan, seeing bamboo in its native habitat, that it behaves exactly the same way in its native habitat as it does here in our habitat.
It's not going to take over the world. It will make a mess out of your garden, yes.
For sure.
But that doesn't qualify as an invasive exotic. You have to be invasive exotic. The plant has to be able to seed broadly, and bamboo doesn't fit that. So yes, it's a thug. Yes, it's a plant. People need to be very careful if it's a runner. But the clumpers, I'm sorry.
Definitely.
No.
The American Bamboo Society takes basically the same stance as that. That it's like, by all the definitions of invasive, you can't really say that it's invasive. But they also acknowledge that it's a bit of a commitment. That, like, when you're planting bamboo, you're committing to the maintenance that's required to keep it where it is. And it does require a lot of maintenance to keep it where it is. But, like, it's like a personal responsibility thing, which most people are like, oh, we'll just plant it and forget about it. And that's when it starts swallowing landscapes. But if you're willing to take on that responsibility that you just put for yourself, they can be managed. It's a lot more work than most people are willing to put into it, but it can be done if you are willing to do it.
It is, yeah. It's sort of like marrying into a very large and boisterous family. They're going to require a massive amount of effort.
Yeah. But if you love them,
if you love them, great, exactly.
For sure.
I'd like to ask a couple sort of design questions, or do any of them have like bigger culms, or they're all very, very skinny, narrow growth?
Most of the Fargesia is going to be fairly narrow in growth. You're not going to get anything that you could really fish with out of a Fargesia. Then you need to go to the Berendas or the Bambusas. Berendas, we've got culms about that big, so you can, probably 2 inches. So
that's
you can
sizable.
Get some.
You can do stuff with
you can
that.
get some good. Yeah, you can build things with that. And the Bambusas, again, if you have mild winters, you'll get some really large culms. But if we get cold every winter, no, your bets are off.
Right.
But I'd say the Bambusa Green Giant is really the fastest with the biggest culms around here of the warm lovers. And those are great from here down to the coast. From here west up in the mountains, you need to stick with your Fargesias and your Eushanias.
And would that Green Giant be the tallest that we could grow as well?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the tallest Bambusa around here of the clumpers. I've not run into anything even close to that.
I'd like to ask a question in the same vein as Evans, but obviously the opposite end of the spectrum. So let's say you've got a small space in heavy shade. Like, what's the smallest, most shade-tolerant plant that you could squeeze into your fully mature garden?
Probably Fargesia rufa. That's just, for us, if we put it in the shady area, it's not going to top out at 4 feet.
Okay.
If we put it in a little more sun with a little more moisture, we can get it to maybe 5 to 6. Okay. But Fargesia rufa is just
cute little thing.
Fabulous. Oh,
nice.
yeah. Now, for small spaces, that's your plant.
Cool.
Good to know.
Yeah.
And can you grow any of these indoors in containers? Do any of them like that? Or
I'll be honest with you, I've not tried.
Okay.
I have seen them used in malls, so obviously the answer would be yes.
Sure.
But really don't have any experience with those. And now the bamboosas, yes, if you've got really tall ceilings, they're great. If you go up to somewhere like the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens, they've got, I mean, combs that are almost a foot across.
That's
oh
awesome.
my gosh.
And some of the variegated ones, like with the bamboosas, Alphonse Carr is a phenomenally variegated comb that's just amazing. But again, you're going to need some seriously vaulted ceilings to be able to grow those
and
indoors.
some seriously big containers. I mean, if we're talking that, I mean, I can't think of the top weight on that.
And a seriously bright indoor growing space as well.
Yeah, bright all the way up.
Yeah, but they are amazing plants. But yeah, I don't think most people have got the abilities to do those inside.
Okay.
And they do need good humidity, and we just don't have the humidity that they need in our houses.
Sure. Well, how about growing them in a container outside?
Yeah, fantastic. For the bamboosas, you're going to need to bring them into the winter, because typically a plant in a container is going to lose about 20 to 25 degrees hardiness as opposed to being in the ground.
Gotcha.
So in the ground, if it's going to fry the foliage at 10 degrees, it'd probably be dead at 10 degrees in a pot.
Yeah.
Now the Fargesias, Eushanias, those should be great in a pot that stays out year round. So you can, put those on your deck, move that around, fantastic.
Nice.
And you mentioned variegated culms. Are there any other variegated cultivars of what you have?
There are. We got a Bambusa textilis, Albo lineata, which is nice. But Alphonse Carr is just like the cream of the crop. There's not any variegated clumpers of the non-heat lovers that I have run across. There's more tropicals that have variegation, but not that would live around here. Alphonse Carr is really the only one we've run into in our trials that will survive here. And again, so if you get 2 or 3 mild years, you get some, almost 1-inch culms that are just gorgeous.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And so most bamboos are tropical? Or most clumping bamboos?
No, I think that I haven't counted, but my guess is there would probably be almost as many tropical as there are cold lovers. So it's really, bamboos are native from the Himalayas all the way down through Southeast Asia. So it's got a pretty wide range. So I haven't really counted which ones would be cold lovers, which ones would be hot lovers, but there's a wide selection out there. And there are nurseries that specialize in bamboos.
Yeah.
There's the majority of the ones that everybody knows are going to be in Oregon, and they're really amazing. They actually bring new bamboos into the country, which most people can't do, because bamboos are a grass, and you can't legally bring grasses in unless you work through the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and they have a 2-year quarantine. So there's one nursery in Florida that uses the USDA quarantine. There's at least 1 or 2 in Oregon that bring it in. And so it has to spend 2 years in Beltsville, Maryland, in the area we call Area 51, where everything is quarantined, kept top secret before they release those. And, so that's a multi-year process. So they are willing to do that, which has been great. That's the only way we've got a lot of these new bamboos in.
Are you familiar with Arundinaria gigantea?
Yeah, it's one of our native bamboos.
Isn't it just native to the southeast? I just learned about this plant yesterday, never heard about it ever before.
Yeah, we have 2 native bamboos. We used to have 1, and then they realized, there's actually 2 in there.
Right. And it's a runner of all things.
Oh, they're runners. Oh my God, they're runners. And you want to talk about something that will take over. That will take over. I don't find them very attractive. I've seen them in the wild for the last 60 years. I think they're just frankly butt ugly. But some people grow them because they're native. I was like, okay, that to me is not a reason.
What I read about them is that they're native and nobody grows them. Nobody wants them. Like they're not attractive.
Are those the short little ones?
They can get up to 6 feet.
Okay, what are the ones I see when they're like 3-4 feet?
Poorly grown.
Okay.
Yeah, if you got a bad site, they're not going to be as tall. But Yeah, they're native around here. They're native right here in our county.
And who's our other native bamboo?
I forget the new species. It was only described in the last 10 to 15 years, and it was one that was formerly lumped into Arundinaria gigantea.
Sure.
So it's pretty similar.
Yeah,
Okay.
The taxonomists can tell the difference. But
Sure.
again, they're both ugly, in my humble opinion. So I just don't see them as having much garden value.
Yeah.
And then in general, what kind of maintenance does it require to have a clumping bamboo?
Really, it doesn't.
No kidding.
I mean, that's probably one of the least maintenance-free most maintenance-free plants we grow.
Sure.
Right.
The one thing I will tell you is, depending on how you've got nice, neat, clean paths, it does drop leaves.
Sure.
All evergreens drop leaves.
Yeah,
they
they
just
do.
don't drop them all at once. So when the new leaves come out, all the old leaves drop.
Yeah.
So if you got really nice paths, you're going to go out there and you're like, what are these leaves from? Who dropped the leaves? And they're going to be all over the place. If you've got a naturalistic area with mulch, great, it's free mulch.
Yep.
It's not, I mean, they're small leaves, so it's not like it's a significant
break down.
issue. But if you got the warm lovers like the bamboosas and you get a cold winter, you're going to have to go in because you're going to get leaf burn.
Okay.
And dead material.
Yeah, and if the leaf burn gets worse, then it goes back and
Sure.
kills the culms.
Uh-huh.
And you have to decide, am I willing to look at a butt ugly bamboo for a couple years till it regrows, or do I want to just cut it to the ground and let it come back?
Uh-huh.
Okay. But so you have the option to go all the way down to
You
the
do.
ground. Would you rather go all the way down to the ground, or would you just cut up high at the dead?
It's all based on the damage. I've
Sure.
had years where I've done both, where
Yeah.
I knew that the damage was minimal on the foliage.
Sure.
It'll grow right out with the new
Yeah.
leaves, or some years it's just so much dead. It's like,
No kidding.
just
Just start over.
off with their head.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. What about pests? Are there pests and diseases that these things tend to get?
Not that I've run across. I've
kidding.
never seen anything attack a
Yeah.
bamboo.
For sure.
I'm sure there's something somewhere that is, but
Yeah.
not that we've ever run across.
No kidding.
There's a lot more bamboos or clumping bamboos that I would try after hearing you talk about them. Will we put this list out of the list that you ran through when you
Yeah.
talked about all the bamboos you have?
Yeah, well, we've got a few more than this.
Oh, do you?
I think we probably have those on our website without looking, that we
Nice.
have the bamboo collections. But yeah, absolutely. And once we find out one will grow, we try to offer and propagate it because, again, they're getting harder and harder to find.
I see.
And we've tried, we've got maybe 15 that have done really well. We've probably killed 50 to 60 that haven't done well. When something new comes in, we'll get a plant or two, which is, it's pretty expensive if you know you're going to kill something, because you're paying anywhere from $85 to $150 a plant of something you think you're probably going to kill.
Yeah.
So that's not the easiest thing in the world to do economically, but we think it's important for people to learn, because if you don't, we're limited to the information of the nurseries on the West Coast
Exactly.
that have tried it.
Because what if it did work? What if it's an amazing bulletproof plant for all over the place that doesn't spread, doesn't get diseases? Like, what if it's the next great plant? So you can't let fear govern your gardening behavior. I keep saying it on this program.
Well, it's like the Brenda Bulliano. The people in Oregon told us that will not tolerate heat. We don't think it will even survive for you. So we planted it out in full baking sun, and it's the most beautiful bamboo in our garden.
Sure.
So yes, that was worth taking that chance and killing the other 50 that didn't survive.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Yes.
Cool. I'll have to come by and see them all. Keep an eye out. Start looking for bamboos.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's all the questions I had for you.
Cool. Okay, well, there were a couple of questions that came in. First off, Nancy wanted to know, Tony, is your shirt available for sale anywhere?
I forget which one I wore. No, this is just one I made online.
Okay. Okay, so get a little creative, Nancy. Nothing's stopping you from making your own. Dan wants to know, will Berinda angustissima do well in the Carolinas?
Nope. Been there, killed that several times.
Been there, killed that. Okay.
So if you were in a cooler area, if you were in Oh, I'd say
Mountains?
the low mountains. It's not got a lot of hardiness, but in sort of the, maybe from Hillsboro up to, say, Hickory, I think it would be worth a shot.
Okay.
But certainly not here.
Are there special things you would do to maybe try to extend the range of it? Like maybe planting it on a berm, would that help? Or giving it an extra cover? What do you?
Yeah, microclimates always help.
Yeah.
So if you've got a warm grower, closer to a wall or something is great. For cool growers, if you put it on a steep slope where the air runs down, you can always tweak things a little bit with microclimates.
Cool. Okay. Let's see. What else? Do they prefer more drier spots or wetter spots, or are they completely ambivalent to that?
I don't know I've ever met an ambivalent bamboo. But, I would say average to dry.
Average to dry.
For most of them.
Sure.
The way you can keep a bamboo from spreading is to plant it by water. It will not cross water.
No kidding.
They will absolutely not cross it.
No
you put
kidding.
them on a moat, they will stay there. Now, if the moat ever dries up, they are sitting there ready to go, but they will not cross water.
Or if the moat fills with leaf litter and you're not cleaning it out regularly and creating a nice thick little substrate for it to go through, that's another way.
They do not like waterlogged soils at all.
Okay. Have you heard about like just digging dry trenches out to like air prune? Have you heard about that, and is that effective? Air prune the roots, I mean, to prevent it from spreading.
On a runner?
Yeah.
Or clump it, you don't want to get too big?
I would say no. In theory, yes.
Okay.
But you are trusting that bamboo, when you're asleep, is not going to cross that air prune trench. And
sure. Yeah.
No, places I've seen bamboos do. No, would not cross. They sell actually a hard plastic material.
Yeah.
But it has to be put together professionally. It has metal screws that have to go together, and it's like you're putting together the vault on Fort Knox.
Yeah.
I mean, you just bamboos. The power of the new growth on a bamboo is just surreal. So
and those things need to be well engineered. Like if you have too many seams in the thing you're putting together, each one of those seams is a weak point that the bamboo will break through. And like you're welcome to install concrete barriers around things, but concrete does break. So if you're doing concrete barriers, it needs to be reinforced concrete with rebar in the thing, and even that can still crack. They can still get through. So it's a lot, y'all. It's a lot. Let's see. Were there any other questions? Judy wants to know the bamboos that are on your website that are listed for 7B. She wants to know if they'll survive in Central Virginia. She says she's just about 2 hours north of you.
We give cold ranges and heat ranges.
Okay.
So take a look at the cold and heat ranges on each. Central Virginia, depending on where you're going to be, is going to be anywhere from a 6B to a 7A.
Sure.
So just get your hardiness on, then take a look. And like I say, we give the cold zone and the warm bin.
Nice. That's useful information. For sure. Okay. Susan wants to know if, and my Chinese is absolutely atrocious, but would Zhuzhangou work in high shade under loblollies and maples? The exposure is north-northwest and a bit of a wind tunnel. She's trying to screen a 2-story apartment next door.
Oof.
And she's got woodland ruby elysium doing well in that spot.
Read that question again.
Zhuzhangou, will it work in high shade under loblollies and maples?
Yeah, that should be fine. What she's talking about, when I said the bamboos flowered last, it was a whole new generation from Zhuzhangou, China.
Zhuzhangou.
And so there's numbers 1 through 10 that I'm aware of.
Yes.
Number 1 has done great for us. I believe number 10 has done good, but I've killed like 3, 4, 5, 6. So not all the Zhuzhangous are the same, but the one that they commonly call common name Red Dragon has done very well.
Okay, nice.
So again, it's just it's something that we have to experiment with each of them. We know, all right, this one worked, this one didn't, but the conditions under light shade, pine trees, should be good. Not dense shade. You just don't want to be dense, but
For sure. Awesome. Okay. Well, that looks like all of the questions that have come in for today. So I'll leave with a comment from Dan about a runner. He says, I've seen in Brazil where they dug a ditch around running bamboos and it was contained. However, the ditch was 4 feet deep and 4 feet wide.
Yes.
So that'll do the trick. Absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Evan. And thank you so much, Tony, for coming out to the garden today and sharing your wisdom as far as bamboos are concerned. We really do appreciate you being here and sharing with us. So
You're welcome.
Yeah, I
thank you for
learned
that.
a lot, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on the Midweek program today. We will be back next Wednesday at 3 with another Midweek program for you. Where we're going to be doing cool European plants. We've already gone around the garden and filmed cool European plants with our cool Croatian interns. Next week, we're going to hear from our cool Irish graduate student and Tim, who's, well, a Pennsylvanian. But it'll be a great program. We will see you all next time. Y'all take care.